Good morning. Good morning, everyone. GM, and welcome to another episode of FOMO Hour. Today is Monday, June 23rd, 2025. And folks, it was a weekend where something indeed did happen. Saturday night, out of nowhere, Trump bombs Iran with B-52s going after their nukes. It in turn nuked our crypto prices. But we started rebounding last night, and we are rebounding swiftly here this morning. And we are wondering once again, is the bottom in? Or was the sell in May and go away crowd correct again in 2025? We're going to break it all down on today's show. No, Farouk, he is off this week. Mando should be joining us. It's his birthday. We'll see if he pops in. But we got Logan on with us. Logan, GN, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, Tyler. Doing well, all things considered. It is brutally hot here in PA. Market, of course, not following in kind, but very, very hot. Hopefully the market will correspond.
We are on the tail end of the 3-day heat wave where it was 90, 95 every day. And for folks who are not familiar with Chicagoland, we generally don't get this hot. That's about as hot as it gets here. And I'm even north of the city. So it is a bit extreme.
I think it's 98 later today.
Yeah, it's up there. Logie, just quick sports side. Game 7. My hometown Indianapolis Pacers. What fell short last night. What were your reactions to the game?
Yeah, I was rooting for the Thunder. I have I really like Jalen Williams a lot. So I was rooting for the Thunder. But of course, as a sports fan in general, it's just really heartbreaking. Like the whole game felt over, even though the Pacers hung in. The game felt over when Halliburton went down. So that was disappointing. But otherwise, feeling good. Your
boy Jalen Williams had a terrible first half.
Yeah,
he did bring it back in the second.
Yeah, he's good. I like him as a player a lot.
I like him too.
No particular reason, but yeah.
My takes. So, quick side, if anyone's in the Chicagoland, I watched the game with a few friends at the DraftKings Sportsbook outside Wrigley. It's awesome. It was my first time being there. It's a Vegas style sportsbook, so huge screens everywhere, full bar. It was a great environment to watch the game. So I highly recommend that if anyone is a sports fan in the Chicagoland area. And I mean, those first few minutes, Halliburton looked like he hit 3 threes out of maybe 4. It looked like they really came to play. And Oklahoma State really did not play that well across the game. So I feel like if he stays healthy, of course, it's a big if. I think the Pacers would have had a real shot. But you're right, basically. As soon as he went down, their odds were looking pretty tough. But it was a fun season, fun NBA playoffs overall. So we'll see what next year looks like. Wish Halliburton a speedy recovery. Folks, we are talking about more than the NBA Finals on today's show. So what else are we talking about? We're going to start with the market report. What happened with the war latest over this weekend? What does it mean for our crypto tokens? How are markets looking here on Monday morning as we are opening up the markets? What was the fastest horse? We've got these alt ETFs. Looks like they're coming soon, folks. Just a matter of when and not if. Circle does not stop. It's up more again today. We've got Anthony Pompliano launching a new $1 billion Bitcoin acquisition company that had been somewhat telegraphed. We've got DFDV coming on chain, Reddit maybe using World ID, NFT companies leaning into Telegram sales, REKT, big 3-day sellout, and more. Before we dive into it, quick shout out to our partners. First up, Wallet Connect. Wallet Connect is the connectivity network shaping the future of on-chain UX. If you've connected to a Web3 app, you've seen Wallet Connect. That blue logo, it's everywhere. An icon of trust in crypto, as recognizable as Visa at the checkout. If you want to learn more, follow at Wallet Connect on X and Telegram to stay ahead of what's next. And Kraken Pro gives active traders exactly what they need: deep liquidity, full customization, and 350 plus trading pairs. Build your own layout with drag and drop modules and trade seamlessly across desktop or mobile. Go to pro.kraken.com and trade without trade-offs. All right. Well, with that, we'll get into the market report. No Mando, so I'll do my best Mando impression. Let's hit the music.
For daily NFT and crypto analysis, Tyler D on FOMO Hour cause the kid can't miss.
Ready to patch some barriers. All right, folks. Reminder, we will be doing the screen share live in Kick, where we are now streaming every day. So let's take a look at the board. Bitcoin rallying here this morning, 102.4, up 1.5% from yesterday, still down 4% on the week. ETH back over 23, up 5% on the day. XRP up 3%, $2.03. Solana up 6%, fastest horse of the majors, but still only at 137. If we take a look at broader markets, so stocks are green. Wow, I thought there would at least be some kind of a sellout or sell-off, at least the first few hours of the day, especially with how the crypto markets reacted over the weekend. But no, stocks indeed are green, and it looks like oil is red. Yeah, so I think that was another perhaps surprise here. Of course, the news from over the weekend is on Saturday night, I was out and about and saw the messages on Twitter that the B-52s from the U.S., Trump had sent them. They sent the bunker buster missiles down at Fordo nuclear facility, trying to effectively wipe out. That caught folks off guard, to say the least. Trump went and addressed the nation effectively after the stealth mission had been completed. Saw reactions from Iran in the last 36 hours or so. I think the big threat from them was they voted to approve closing the Strait of Hormuz, which is where like 20% of the world's oil supply filters through, though it looks like poly market bettors are saying there's more bark than bite on that one. Only has it at a 23% chance of actually happening. I think there's been a lot of folks looking for other global reactions from players like Russia, China. I don't know that we've seen a whole lot of escalated rhetoric, at least just yet. So I think that is still a factor that folks are looking at here this week. What kind of escalations will take place? The U.S. has put troops globally on higher alert, expecting some kind of retaliation from Iran here. As Israel-Iran war has continued, both are still sending missiles at each other. As for the White House, the message out of Trump this morning has been oil-focused. He's telling the Department of Energy to drill, and I mean now. So he is going after the oil folks there. Logie, I guess first question for you, were you surprised? Did this catch you off guard on Saturday? Any other reactions to the global conflict here?
Yeah, not necessarily. I should first just provide a small disclaimer. I'm a little out of my depths here, just from almost a purposeful ignorance of not trying to pay super close attention to all the tension headlines from time to time. But nothing really surprises me here. I always feel like, or at least I have felt like for the last few months, as you know, things here, tariffs as well, right? The headlines are seemingly always a little bit, I think you use the term more bark than bite, right? So that's how I've felt a little bit here. Of course, we took a pretty, real action. So you can't really call that probably bark. But as for what, transpires in the next few days, months, I'm hoping it's easing. I hope it is more of the bark than the bite. And we could sort of refocus on, whether it's, finding peace, it's finding whatever the actual outcome is for all parties that's in best interest for all involved. I'm hoping we move towards that in some way or another, and things don't escalate further. Because I think the unfortunate part of the escalation is just the increased volatility. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. I kind of like being bored in the summer and just, I'm okay with Bitcoin chilling at 103,000, and not worrying about the volatility.
Yeah, this was the opposite of being bored. A lot indeed has been happening. I think part of the confusion, perhaps from the broader base, is what did this mean for the U.S.? Like, is the U.S. entering the war? I've seen that rhetoric. My read is it was kind of an enter and exit already, and like this was the sole effort that they had planned, and there really isn't anything else. We will, of course, we'll see if that continues, but the odds of a U.S. invasion in Iran only at 16%. So markets are pricing that here still pretty low. Odds of a U.S.-Iran nuclear deal is still at 36% in 2025. What else is interesting? I think the biggest next focus is on regime change. Markets are pricing an Iranian regime fall in 2025 only at a 30% chance, though Khamenei out as supreme leader at 56%. So that has been moving up a fair amount. It has been interesting, I think more so than previous years, to follow the war live on prediction markets, right? Like we have all these various markets where you can see exactly how folks are betting on outcomes.
Have you not to put you on the spot, Tyler, but have you participated with any? Because to me, there's like a small moral dilemma about, actually putting a wager behind something here and rooting for it in some way. It's just it's a little weird, but you're right. I mean, this is where we're at now. Pop culture, politics, everything in the world is real time on chain. It's just the state of where we're at.
I'm not the morality police. I'm done playing that game. But these markets are not really for me. I'm not really super interested in betting on war outcomes at this point. Also, just don't feel like I have any kind of an edge. So like I wouldn't be good at it. So like I came on the show last week and I was kind of pointing to the taco trade, the Trump always chickens out. And my gut read last week was that the longer this was going to be stretched out, the less likely the U.S. was to take any action. And then Saturday night, we got the surprise. So it does look like perhaps Trump telegraphed the move and he kind of walked it back to make it look a little more uncertain. I guess is kind of my read on things. Tying this back to the crypto market, I mean, it really impacted majors over the weekend. So, I mean, a week ago on Monday, Bitcoin's 108K, kind of sold off across the week as the war escalated. But then what was it? Yes, Sunday, we went as low as 98.5 on Bitcoin. ETH, how low did ETH go? It went into the 2100s. I don't know if it actually went below 2100. Yeah, it looks like right around 2133 or so. Pretty brutal sell-offs across the board. And of course, we're rebounding swiftly. Bitcoin back at 1022 right now. So already up 3.5% off the bottom. Were you surprised at the sell-off? Or is it just kind of par for the course?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit par for the course, right? Like we have not bucked the trend of, I don't know, like what? So gold went higher, I think, right? Like we still haven't bucked that trend of it is the, the reserve asset is the I don't know. I'm struggling to find the right word for it, Tyler, but it's just not moving in line with some of the narratives that have been driven around Bitcoin for a really long time, right? It doesn't ever seemingly do that. So this does not surprise me. All that to say, this does not surprise me in any way. Not like fearful though in any way on my side. Like I said, I'm kind of okay with the chop. I'm not like super active in anything right now, but I continue to buy Bitcoin and just kind of feel okay about it. So you get these smaller dips or more severe dips. This was a pretty, I don't know, not super severe in terms of crypto volatility, but we went from 105 when I was writing on Friday, like around 105 to 98 in like a day and a half. That's pretty notable. And so, I just kind of feel okay adding to the stack there. Dollar cost averaging.
I guess I forgot that we were at 106 on Friday.
Yeah. MYRIAD has a prediction market up that I wrote about in my MYRIAD moves piece that was, is it Bitcoin 115 or 95 first? Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like right in the middle. It was at 105 when I was writing about it on Friday morning. Of course, but now that still becomes an interesting market here, right? Because we didn't get through there. I don't know where the support lines are or anything like that, but we didn't breach quite that low. And if tensions are easing, and there isn't any weird new headline, I could very much see 115 being in play before 95. I don't know where the odds are right now.
Firmly at 115, but I mean we hit 98, so now like the 95K side objectively has to be favored. Especially if you look at this 1 month chart right now. I was talking to a good friend on the way down to the sports book last night, and sharp guy, but not deep in crypto. He's in other sectors. And I was telling him about how Bitcoin and crypto majors had sold off after the US bomb. And he said, like point blank, I couldn't string together 2 sentences for why Bitcoin would sell off in that situation. And I'm not really sure I can either, right? Because like in theory, like gold would move up on a headline like that.
And it did, right?
And then even if you had the argument that it's trading more like levered tech stocks are green. So what is it that derives these actions that makes everyone so shaky with Middle Eastern conflicts when it comes to Bitcoin? And I don't have my finger on the pulse of it. Is it because so much is held in the Middle East? Is it Middle East holders selling us off? Like I am very curious for someone smarter than me to help answer that question, because I don't have the answer to that.
Well, I'm not the guy either, because I don't have a great answer for it. As you noted, like I couldn't come up with a super coherent reason as to why, because for so long we've been telling ourselves that it shouldn't do that, right? Like it should do the exact opposite of what it did. That's one of the big narratives here, is that it's supposed to be kind of this digital gold, right? And others, people smarter than I am, people that are trying to predict the price, people like ARK Invest, etc., like they're using that as the rationale for bullish price predictions, like the digital gold narrative. Yet, in these moments in which it very much could stand out as a digital gold, it doesn't really ever seem to.
And to be clear, I still believe in that narrative on a long-term time horizon.
Yeah, same here.
Hedge, store value. I firmly believe it, but it is on a near-term time horizon. It is still surprising every time we get these dips, and it certainly caught me off guard, because I was actually DCing in some Bitcoin last week in that 103 to 105 level. I liked that entry, and still, I mean, it's just down a couple percent from here, but didn't see. I really thought 102.5, 103.5 was going to hold. It looked like we were having higher lows there for a bit, but we lost it. Did you see just the absolute mayhem across alts and memes? So Sol went down to like 130. Farcoin, how low did Farcoin get? Let's see. Let's go down the list. So Farcoin's at 92 cents right now. I want to say it went down to like below 80. It looks like it tapped 80 cents twice, maybe went into the 70s briefly. Hyperliquid, the hype token went all the way down. It wicked to 30, basically. And now rebounding pretty swiftly. It's already back to 36. So it's been carnage. Did you make any trades? Any reactions to some of these other alt moves?
No, I'm again not surprised. Like if Bitcoin's going to swing down as violently as it did, I'm not shocked at all that Farcoin and Hype are kind of falling in line with it, or even underperforming it. I did not make any active trades, though. I do have a small DCA on for Farcoin right now, so I'm adding to that bag. It's a very, very small bag. I know I've talked about it on here before, like kicking myself. I can remember the show in Peru I did when it was at like 200 million. And then we did a show like a week later and it was at 500 million. And the entire time I've said I should own more Farcoin. So I'm trying to take advantage of it and actually, make that happen. Should things eventually go up, I feel confident Farcoin might be one that goes up with it.
Yeah, I'm still a very strong Farcoin bull in long-term time horizon. I will say objectively, this chart makes me think perhaps we were going to get one more leg lower after a recovery rally. That's just my gut read looking at this. The other chart, man, look at this hype chart. Like this looks pretty damn good, I gotta say. Like anyone who got in on that dip.
I saw the Clemente video. I was not actively paying attention to like day hour to hour things over the weekend, but it was shared in a chat and very funny about the whole hype shenanigans and his involvement there.
Indeed. So fear and greed at 37. Pretty wild move, especially with Bitcoin at 102. And I'll ask this question and then we'll move on to some more of the news. Were the sell in May and go away crowd right? Were they correct?
What was the price when we entered May? I don't actually even remember.
Let's take a look. I shared the meme coin chart on Twitter this morning. It had definitely peaked in May. Let's see, May 28th, 27th, we were at 109.9. It's basically 110. Then May 29th, 108.7. Then it kind of sold off the next few days.
Depending on where in May you sold, you were probably right. Okay, so they were probably right. I don't know. I mean, there's this whole, like, this presidency, this administration, all the regulation stuff. There's so many potential catalysts, it feels like, that could come at a moment's notice. But at the same time, there's so many things that he could just send out on Truth Social that, it's crazy. It's wild. I mean, I guess if you're like trading on volatility, this is like probably a dream scenario. But if you're somebody like me that isn't actively trading this stuff and kind of just wants price to go up, that's probably a lot of people. If you just want price to go up and, maybe in a consistent and gradual manner, taking the stairs up, it doesn't feel so great every day. But
I think people want to sell in May and go away because they just want to relax this summer and do other things and touch grass and not have to monitor this. And there's just been total onslaught, 24/7 media and new announcements and all this. And it has been a lot. I'm going to stick to my guns and still think we have a fun summer. Joyful June is looking less joyful, folks. I have to admit that. And I'm not 100% sure that we are going to, in the next 7 days, totally recapture the joy that June started with. But I'm still optimistic for July and August. A couple catalysts on the near-term time horizon. For one, if this conflict ends. And Udi, who has been pretty spot on for this conflict, the Taproot Wizards founder, Bitcoin OG, and I think it's come out that he was in the IDF, the Israel Army, previously in his life. He's been doing a lot of analysis on this war. His take is it's going to be over in 12 days. Though he has also said global peace in 24 months. So he thinks there's going to be continued conflicts off and on across the next 2 years. I don't think that's a huge surprise to anyone. I don't think world peace in 12 days by any means. But if this conflict is over in 12 days, that's a potential catalyst for the summer. We also had the 90-day pause on those tariffs is coming to a head here soon as well. So whatever the Trump administration decision is there, if it's going to be another 90-day delay, that could be a temporary catalyst as well. And then the headlines that we're getting on a day-to-day basis, more and more of these companies spinning up to buy our beloved Magic Internet tokens. So out today, Anthony Pompliano, $1 billion merger to create ProCap Financial, a new Bitcoin. He's calling it native financial services company. It's effectively a Bitcoin acquisition vehicle. They are going to buy up to $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. They've already raised $750 million, massive raise. The ticker is going to be CCCM. And they went on to say that they will also be developing products and services to produce revenue and profit from the Bitcoin on their balance sheet over time. So we've been talking about this new trend for months now. I think nothing new. We had the DFDV team come on the show last week. I do think this last paragraph is the most interesting. I've also seen it raise concerns with folks, but I mean, the whole reason to buy one of these companies versus the underlying asset is if you believe in their financial engineering, effectively. If you think they will be able to outperform the underlying asset via some innovation. So curious for your thoughts. Are you racing out to buy CCCM? What are your thoughts on this trend?
Yeah, I'm not racing out to buy really any of them at this point in time. But actually, the conversation you had with DFDV and Dan Kang, Investor Relations, I wrote an article about it after rewatching the show. And I've been following and reporting on DFDV pretty closely, which I know, of course, is not a Bitcoin treasury vehicle. But it was really eye-opening for me because I think I had been in the camp, Tyler, and we've talked about this before, that this was a worrying trend to me. It felt like a lot of people kind of packaging up shit. Of course, I don't want to call Bitcoin that because I'm a holder and believe in it, but just packaging up all these, little financial loophole-y, weird debt construction things to be able to acquire Bitcoin. And it was just stacking up and eventually a bubble would burst and it'd be really bad for everybody involved. And I think that's a pretty commonly held view at this point in time. There are much smarter people who can, of course, articulate why it's so bad much better than I can. But I got to listen to Dan on that show. And the one thing that it did for me was it opened my eyes that like some of the organizations doing this are doing it very intelligently and have like a very clear plan. And the way that they're going about things, to acquire Solana and to be the vehicle that is doing it most efficiently and more efficiently than you and I can do it, trading meme coins and other garbage tactics right on chain. That makes sense to me. And it didn't feel, maybe it's just a fantastic part of investor relation and communication strategy, but it didn't feel scammy at all in any way. And that was actually that felt really good to me to hear that. It got me bowled up on them a little bit as well. So I'm not writing off any of these companies, maybe at face value as I was before. That's all I can really say. I would need to dig in, but I do think they need to do more than just accumulate. Like Dan was saying, like MicroStrategy has done this thing. They're the behemoth linebacker. It's tough to do that thing now. You got to be a little more creative. You got to be a little bit better at accumulating in a way that is not just stacking on debt, basically. And that does have me a little more interested and actually feeling a little bit better overall about the trend than I was last week.
Yeah, I think the consensus is that this new trend is the most likely to cause the next bear market, that we're going to see some of these treasury companies go bust, become forced sellers. I'm not sure that I'm going to take the other side of that. I do think that's like a broad blanket statement, and I think we will certainly see some have pockets of success. I don't know if that's Anthony Pompliano or not. I do think betting on what you think is the leading horse, perhaps in each of the tokens, is an interesting strategy. So if you think that's MicroStrategy for Bitcoin, if you think that's Joe Lubin and SBET for ETH, if you think it's DFDV for Solana, perhaps pick one of the hype companies that just came out. I do think that's an interesting way to perhaps build a basket. If you want to be in that camp of folks who are pivoting from buying alts to buying stocks, which I'm seeing more and more folks call for on the timeline, I think that is one way to think about it. I don't know Anthony Pompliano super well. I've been casually following him since I got deeper into crypto Twitter. I mean, he was I would have classified him as a CT voice in 2021. Like he was talking about Bitcoin price action. He was an early one. I don't think he necessarily is associated now with it, but I mean, the guy, even like him or hate him, he's got 1.7 million followers. He's built a pretty successful brand. So I do think he is likely an intelligent person. Now, I don't know if that translates to being able to operate an innovative Bitcoin acquisition vehicle. So we will certainly see, but doubtful that he is going to be the last one to do this. I think that much is clear. But man, the stock biz, the crypto stock biz is a good one. That is a fact. Let's 278 for Circle stock. It was at 260 before I clicked refresh. It was at 240 on Friday, up 20%. It is now up another 15%. I joked about this yesterday, that rest assured, whatever is going to happen to your beloved alternative cryptocurrencies, Circle stock is going to be up another 10 to 15%. Yes, it is. Tap the sign. Once again, like, this thing is just unstoppable. Arguably the biggest fumble, one of the biggest fumbles of my professional trading career, is actively following this IPO and just totally sitting on my hands and actually fudding it. Not even just saying being sidelined, but taking the opposite side. And shorts are being blown out. I think trying to be a short on this token is just, I don't know, use your brain power elsewhere, is my take on this. Like, this is a respect the pump if I've ever seen one. So like, let's play this out again for folks who have maybe not been following this trade. IPO'd at 31, but I think it was buyable, like 70 to 80, maybe $80 to $100 range those first couple of days. Basically kind of grinded up. It did have like a week of consolidation. And then I guess really since the Genius Act passed, that's really where things ramped up. So on June 13th, 10 days ago, it opened at 108, went to 130. Then it was 150s. And then, man, it's up another almost 100% in the past week. Just absolutely wild price action. now at 67 billion market cap. I'm pretty sure that's what Coinbase stock was at just a few days ago. So Coinbase is up as well. So it's up. It's also following Circle. I think post Genius Act, Coinbase stock might be another one that's been benefiting. It's been outperforming crypto majors itself. It's hanging out at 78 billion, but they're basically 1-to-1 at this point. Curious if you have any reactions to Circle and or if you had to pick one of these two.
Jeez.
Who would you pick?
Man, it's kind of weird to not pick Coinbase given just like the connection there. It feels like in terms of optionality, Coinbase should have a leg up, but I don't know. I don't know that I can draw a strong case to either as to like why one would go up over the other from here on out. As far as this whole saga goes, I'm kind of speechless as well because there was remember like as you noted around the IPO talks, like 31, we heard it was oversubscribed, but then you're like, okay, oversubscribed, sure, maybe it 2x's, and then it 3x'd in like minutes it halted like 9 times on its opening trading day. But then you're right, you had like a week to buy it from around $100. There might have been a 1 dip day, maybe 2 dip days in there, like small dips. I don't know what to say, man. At a certain point, it does feel like, I've been just kind of following along casually in some chats where people are talking about when to short Circle. It does feel like at some point in time, like, okay, it can't keep going up, right? But it's a dangerous game. We're kind of bringing the trenches on chain here, quite literally. And sometimes
I can answer that question. Can't continue going up. So Scott Bessent called for stable coins to 3.7 trillion by the end of the decade. Is Circle at 3.7 trillion yet?
Well, the other thing here, maybe this is a segue as well, is like Circle is not the only stablecoin company, people.
What are the other ones?
Well, I mean, you have Tether, and then of course you have like things like PayPal have their own stablecoin, right? But then I guess the secondary piece of this is like other companies, JP Morgan, et cetera, whatever, they're gonna do their own stable coins. So 3.7 trillion, okay, Bessent, is Circle gonna be the only proxy for all $3.7 trillion worth of value that trades on the public market? If so, then of course it feels like Circle's going a whole lot higher. But this is one of those things we've talked about this before, like a Coinbase versus just owning your bank and would you custody here, there, whatever. Like, where's the moat? Where's the moat for Circle? If regulation gets passed and people can generate their own stable coins and your banks all have their own stable coins.
Yeah, and this is all the things I was saying as I was a bear wearing my Circle Bear hat, and now I'm just throwing all the mistakes out. I think what it's worth, it's just everything I said was just a tongue-in-cheek play, but like I said it for a reason. Like no one is viewing Visa as a bet on stable coins. No one is viewing JP Morgan stock as a bet on stable coins. You can't bet on Tether right now. No one's viewing Coinbase as a bet on stable coins.
No, I get you.
This is it.
I get you. And I have no ill will towards Circle or like anything weird. I use USDC as my stable coin of choice when I'm like, when I'm stabling or, doing things on chain. But I don't know. I mean, can it just really keep going up? Like you imagine that these other stablecoin companies or even those who are adjacent would be looking at this and being like, oh shit, like this is an opportunity.
Yeah. A couple takeaways here. So one, I think I saw a comment that Circle is stealing the ETF bid. That's an interesting take. And it does look to be accurate. Like I want to make sure this data is correct. But if this is correct, is this right? The Bitcoin ETFs had no flows on Thursday.
Oh, it was closed.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So it was closed Thursday. Only 6 million on Friday. I mean, this is actually a pretty decent inflow streak for Bitcoin. So actually, not a whole lot of takeaways there. Ethereum did definitely slow down after what was a very nice run up there into joyful June. This is when the ETH bulls were very joyful. did $500 million in inflows in a handful of days there. As June started ramping up, ETH runs to 28.75 and then just smacked all the way back down. And now the bid's already gone back to zero on the ETFs. So that is going to be another interesting one to follow here. And I had another direction where I was going to go with that since lost. But the other aspect of the ETFs is which new ones are coming down the pike. So Eric Bakunis, ETF expert, shared the odds on Friday, and it looks like they're saying 90 to 95%. Basically across the board for Litecoin, Solana, XRP, Dogecoin, Cardano, Polkadot, HBAR, and Avalanche by the end of 2025. So massive favorites to get all of these ETFs. There's too many ETFs, and I guess part two, like which of these do you think is the most interesting or will be like the biggest beneficiary of having an ETF product?
Can you have too many ETFs? I think it's just law of diminishing returns after a point, right? Like, yeah, basically this is signal that there will be an ETF for everything ever.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a product that you can, buy this stuff on change not on chain, but potentially, but via the exchange traded fund option, you'll be able to buy it in your traditional markets and equities, whatever. I don't think it matters as much moving forward. Every single one to me is like a little bit less of a big deal. Now, with that being said, because these would be like the first alt-ish ones, right? Whether you consider ETH and alt or not, like these might matter a little bit. The ones that I think it matters most for would be Solana, Ripple, and maybe even Dogecoin.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters too much for Cardano or Polkadot or HBAR, and that's not to take anything away from those ecosystems or whatever's happening there. Like Avalanche and Sui are interesting to me as well, just because my proximity to on-chain activity, those are places where things appear to be happening and there appear to be some interest. And I see the ETFs and the approval of them as, just another catalyst, right, for potential movement up and for potential legitimization as well, which is a murky word to use here alongside like Dogecoin, Cardano. Like Dogecoin's literally a meme coin. You know what I mean? Like it's got its own ETF. So it's weird to say that it's legitimized and via the ETF approval, but in a way, I mean,
it is.
So yeah.
I actually think that's where I was going to go. I think the Dogecoin ETF is the most interesting on this list. And if that catches a bid, it could be a potential catalyst for a next leg up of a meme cycle. And then now, like the big thing for any meme is when's the Binance listing, when's the Coinbase listing. If Dogecoin ETF is successful, then it's when's the ETF listing? You get another carrot.
Yeah, well, actually, those effects have sort of worn off a little bit, right? Like that was like a thing for a while, but it's the same thing. As you add more tokens, as there's more options and places to trade, and that economy becomes more robust, the effect on the listings becomes limited. That's where, I do think you could see it in the early going here. You really definitely could see an ETF listing bump. But
agree and disagree. So I think the ETFs can be impactful is this new wave of financial managers who are just starting to dip their toe into crypto investing and are starting to do 1% to 2% of client portfolios. And they're probably starting with Bitcoin. And if they're going to diversify, they're probably going to diversify into ETH. But I can absolutely see a percentage of them starting to diversify across a broader basket of all of these. And I still am in the camp that we are at the first inning of financial managers investing into crypto via ETFs. And I do think that will continue for years and decades. So that's where you can start to get that infinite twop. I think the infinite twop, of course, is going to be much smaller into a Dogecoin ETF than it is into Bitcoin. But it will be greater than zero, most likely. So that is perhaps the bull case for these. But of course, the more you have, if you've got hundreds of these, the trickier it gets. All right, folks. Looks like we might have the birthday boy on live with us.
Hi guys, how are you?
GM.
Sorry about being late.
Yeah,
I'm great.
No worries.
Great. How are you guys? Just you two?
Yeah, just us two. Frok's out this week. So we've
I
just
didn't know that.
been here with our jaws on the floor looking at the circle stock chart and just trying to wrap our heads around it. But
What's the
that
buying?
and our beloved internet coins are starting to recover a bit on the market open. Curious if you have any high level takes, or I think the biggest thing that was surprising to me, and Logan and I chatted through it, was that stocks didn't even open red at all. Like, there was no stock dip; they just flat open green, coming after the big sell off we had, and just trying to wrap our heads around the question, like, why does Bitcoin and alts, why do they respond so negatively to these conflicts versus gold versus stocks? Because it make a ton of sense on paper. But curious if you have any broad reactions.
Yeah, I think that I think it probably speaks to the buyer base at different time zones. So I think when TradFi markets are open, they think of Bitcoin as digital gold. And when the weekend's just open, we all think that we're trading the NASDAQ. And so as soon as we open, suddenly you have a bunch of people who are like, well, the obvious thing to buy here is gold and digital gold. So Bitcoin always rallies. And we freak out about it. Like, I think we think that like a really bad situation is still bad for Bitcoin, and that's not what the weekday buyer base thinks. So you get this rally. It doesn't necessarily always lead over to alts. Like alts just kind of like bounce because Bitcoin's bounced necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's basically what I see happening at the moment. And I mean, let's be honest. Like, why was this so bad for crypto in any sort of way? Like, it doesn't really make sense that it fundamentally should have meant anything. I think we said that. At least I remember saying that on the weekend, on Friday at least. That, like, if we saw, I didn't think that anything that would take us below 100K. We did briefly go up below 100K, to be fair, and I didn't think there was anything for ETH or hype, which are the things I was looking to buy, that would really take us materially lower. Like, we did have a dip on majority of those, but I had that ladder of buying hype all the way down to 30, which hit really nicely actually. And then ETH, to be fair, ETH buys haven't really bounced as much, but but I just kind of felt like this was us freaking out over very, very little. I continue to think the trade here is to like own Bitcoin, hype, ETH, and Aave, and to short all the rest of the crap, which is like all the high FTV altcoins, which are not really moving anywhere. And that trade for me continues to do pretty well. Let me put it that way. And I'm growing it because I just feel like that's the trade.
Interesting.
I'm glad I got back into hype, basically, because I remember I sold my hype at 30, 38, 39, and now I'm back in, I think 32.3 average. And if it goes that low, I think I'll buy some more. And then if any of these other alts rally aggressively, I think they're probably not in a great spot. Like, I'm not that bullish on altcoin season still happening.
Doesn't look great out there. Sold at 135. I mean, that feels just kind of shockingly low for just where or the state of things.
Sol is a difficult one to judge, in my opinion, because I do still think that Sol isn't going anywhere. But there's some of these other ones which I think you're in for a period here where Bitcoin could very easily stay in 100 to 110K range now for a while. I reckon. I don't know if we're going back to all-time highs that quickly now after all of that. That caused, I think, quite a bit of pain, and we'll see how it shakes out. I don't think the stuff over the weekend was literally the most bearish kind of thing that could have happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had a strike on the nuclear facilities, followed by talk of closing the Strait of Hormuz. And Bitcoin didn't even go below hasn't really stayed below 100K. So, but I also think that we're now in this sort of chop range, which I think will persist.
Do you think the conflict ending breaks us out of the chop? Or is this going to be just, we'll find more reasons, and now it's probably going to be summer chop until Q3, Q4, a new catalyst emerges?
Yeah, I think it's more likely we're in for a bit of a chop here. Like global liquidity is going higher, and I still like ETH, and I still like Hype, and I still like Bitcoin, but I can't tell you when we're going to come out of this now. It felt like we've had a couple of shots at breaking out, and we just hit a high on Bitcoin. We did just hit a lower high and a lower low. That's not something that you just immediately break out of. So I think that points more to chop more than anything.
The sell may go away crowd feels stronger by the day.
Enjoy your summer.
Raoul Paul, he's doing his part to remind us of the global M2 liquidity chart. He shared it again yesterday. Though we finally kind of sunk below, which really hadn't happened in a few months, but of course showing that we're not just going to follow this perfectly to the T. This chart, I think, was the primary hopium for Joyful June for a summer pump beyond anything else. But I think what's notable into what you said, and I'm seeing it too, is like the difference in the 8 to 5, like the market, when the markets are open, the bid on Bitcoin and some of the other majors versus like the after hours versus the close. It does feel like it's two different markets now. And like the institutions just kind of show up and buy most days. And then on the weekends, it's like, I don't know if it's crypto whales just unloading clips, you know, when they feel like it, or amidst volatility and global conflict, or what. But I think that was a decent explanation of kind of what we've been seeing. So we'll continue to follow it. I did think it was notable when Kobe over the weekend was asking what non-angel crypto-related investments to make on a 5-year time horizon. I'll try to find the tweet. And I think you responded with CryptoPunk as your answer.
I just think that if I was to own one thing over the next 5 years, it's tough to argue against that. I think you have to think about something that has a really strong moat. If you're talking about over 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. Like a really strong moat that you can sit there and go, oh, it's going to be there for a while. And I think CryptoPunks has got that really strong moat. I don't know if it performs as well as the other things that he mentioned, but I do think it's a pretty good guess. That and like X copy editions, I would say, are a pretty good guess about stuff that could last for a long time. The other ones that were kind of mentioned, which I thought was interesting, was some of the privacy chains, which people point to coming back a bit, like Monero, and we've invested in Tari, which is another one coming out. But I just think that's an interesting narrative that people are pointing to coming back. And I know Anson mentioned WorldCoin. I think there's been a softening of approach to that in general, just in recent years. I think recent months, just in the idea that it's kind of unique. I don't know if it's unique enough. Let me put it that way. But I do think it's pretty interesting to see that as something come back. I honestly don't know if there's like a huge amount much else. I think you could say something like Tron as a play on just like the other half of crypto, like the sanctions half, like continuing to see very decent volume. And Tron dominates, I think, a lot of that activity, whether you turn a blind eye to it or not. Like Tron, the majority of Tron's activity comes from stablecoins from sanctioned countries, basically. And I felt like that's an interesting one over multiple years. Like it's got a good moat there now, and Justin Sun has managed to position himself as untouchable almost. Like it's very strange, but but at least for the next 4 years, I feel like he's kind of untouchable. And then that's honestly kind of it. Like you may pick
Yeah.
something like a tier 1 DeFi, like an Aave, I think, which has like, but I don't sit there and go like, there's a lot else there which is very, very unique and tough to touch, basically.
Yeah, I agree. The 5-year bet makes this so hard, and part of it is like if folks aren't familiar with what a lot of these altcoin charts look like on 5 years, like they can be very brutal. So if you pick the wrong one, like you can lose quite a bit. DC Investor kind of summarized a lot of them. I think what he has SBET in there, which I think he's probably the only one, effectively the MicroStrategy of ETH, which we talked about on Friday. Interesting. I still haven't made a move on that. Top tier generative art is very difficult because I feel like for most people, it's like, okay, well, what do you buy? You buy Squiggle, I guess, is like the index, or Fidenza, I suppose. I think that's a little trickier of a play. CryptoPunks and XCopy would be at the top of my NFT list, 100%. And then maybe Sam Spratt is in there as well, even though I think Sam Spratt is probably still a riskier bet than XCopy, I think, objectively, just because he's still a bit newer. I don't know if I throw Aave. I'm not throwing Aave in there with SBET. I think one ETH bet is probably enough for me. And I think WorldCoin is interesting, though. It's still like part of the early flood on WorldCoin was the low float, high FTV, right? Are we just looking past that because of the dominance of OpenAI and Sam Altman at this point in time? I mean, this is. I
think that's partly it. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's a tricky one. I wouldn't have picked that. Basically, it's not cheap.
Logan, any reactions to that question? Anywhere where you would have any direction where you would have headed?
No, I think what's been discussed here is pretty close. I like the addition of the DeFi, whether that's Aave or like if you have an affinity for Solana, like maybe that is Camino or Jito or something like that. If you really think those are, Solana as an ecosystem is like up only from here on out. I do like the addition of a DeFi protocol or some connection to a DeFi token. WorldCoin is still interesting to me. I don't think it would have been like, it wouldn't have made like my list of like first 2 or 3 things off the top of my head. And Mando mentioned, I mean, it may not be as unique as we perceive it to be, but it's like the very clear narrative winner here, right? As far as like proof of humanity AI type thing goes. And I think that trend is only going to continue to grow. Like the wanting to be able to differentiate between, which people have been championing about blockchain for a long time, right? It's not like WorldCoin's unique in that aspect, but the championing of like, hey, we want to be able to ensure authenticity, humanity, etc. I think it has a pretty big stranglehold on that. And so if that does truly, truly grow, like I don't know where else I would be placing my bets aside from WorldCoin.
Yeah, and we saw this quick on that note. We saw the headline this weekend. Reddit is considering using WorldCoin in their orb system to verify users. I do think user verification it's something I think we're both bullish on. Logan, we were chatting about it. That is a trend that will only continue. We see like X right now, the state of Twitter in reply agents is absolutely brutal. I think it's ruining the app for a lot of folks. So like some kind of a human verification system, I think will largely be welcomed and will be more and more important. I think folks push back on the anonymity aspect of this. I was looking into it. So what they say they do, if you take them at their word, is they scan your retina, they do some decryption, hashing it behind the scenes, and then they delete it. So they effectively do a one-time verification, and then they remove your user data. So I actually think it is fairly anonymous, an interesting way to potentially do it. We'll see if it catches on. I feel like this is one from a trading perspective where you can be bullish on the product, but not on the token, right? And I mean, this thing still is 60% to unlock, and it looks like a chart that has ongoing unlocks, at least to me. So Not the best. Well, folks, we're almost at the hour mark. One big story we didn't have a chance to dig into is the telegrams. These telegram sticker sales. Now nearly $10 million. So, Logan, we might have to put a pin in this one.
Yeah, sure
We
thing.
can talk about it more at length on tomorrow's show, because I want to know like what is going on here. Because I see Pudgy Penguins with $2 million in sales, and that's actually pretty interesting to me. So I am curious. So we'll try to dig into that more on tomorrow's show. And then shout out to OSF and the REKT homies selling out 7-Eleven 3 days in a row. Not an easy thing to do. So congrats to him. Hopefully he gets to rest a bit coming after what I'm sure was a whirlwind weekend, and then he'll get back to work. I'm sure. So would love to get back on the show. I know he's super busy these days, but I want to hear about these 7-Eleven parties because they looked like they were pretty fun, and of course they were very successful. As for that, I think that's going to be it for today's show. I want to thank our listeners. As always, I want to thank my co-hosts, Mando and Logan. Thank our partners, Kraken and Wallet Connect. Folks, we will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Until then, go make it a beautiful day.